You're watching the Spo Show. I'm Dave Crespo. We have a fly moving around Sweet J. We are in Salt Lake.
This never happens.
Do you like Breaking Bad? I have Shireen. You say Gorbani, right?
Yeah.
I feel like it feels real Italian to me.
It's Persian. I'm Iranian.
You have a Wikipedia, so I did read it, and I don't know. Anyways, Shireen Gorbani.
Yes, I like to tell people an easy way to remember it is Al Gore. Gore. You probably have met someone named Bonnie. You just slap it together. Gorbani.
It's not too hard. I just like. I don't know. There's something. You know what it is? It's Inglorious Bastards.
Ah.
Yeah, they're like. They're the Gorbani. But so you're a Salt Lake City council woman, but
yep.
but technically a county council woman.
Yep. So
what does that mean?
I'm like, okay, quick dive into local politics.
Yeah.
So in wherever you live, unless you are in unincorporated Salt Lake County, which I'll explain in just a minute, you likely have a city council, a mayor in your municipality, so in your city. So Salt Lake City, right? For example, Cottonwood Heights has their own council, mayor. And then the county is the entire Salt Lake County. All of our 29 counties have county government, and then also many of our cities have city government as well, right? So county government is usually where we're kind of talking about some of those bigger initiatives and efforts. Really, the reason that I'm very passionate about county government is that we are the number one mental health care provider in the state. Just given the numbers of people that live in Salt Lake County, the connection between people coming into, in some cases, and I'm sure we'll be talking about this, but our criminal justice system is often closely linked to issues around mental health in our community. We are recommending diverting and have partnerships across many service providers that put people into addiction treatment services and mental health care. Healthcare is the reason that I got into politics.
Because again, it's on your Wikipedia, which I'm a little jealous.
Oh,
I want a Wikipedia.
Well, we just have to keep making it.
Yeah. Anyways, yeah, you because of your mother, right? You like something. I don't know if that's maybe.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to talk about it. So basically, I was just a working mom here in Salt Lake. I live in Salt Lake City. Had been very active in the community. Certainly, a person who was politically active, a voter. An engaged person, had written letters to my representatives, and had gone to been to city council meetings.
You took time to write. To like physically write to people?
No, I mean like email, but
okay.
Yeah, I've done that.
And I didn't know if you had like a scroll in your...
No. And then in 2016, my world really shifted quickly, as I think it did for many people. But for me, it was not only what was happening on a national level, certainly the election of Donald Trump, but before that, in June of 2016, my mom was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And I don't know if any of you know anyone who has had the terrible misfortune of being diagnosed or know a loved one with pancreatic cancer. It rips. And in our case, by the time she was diagnosed to the time she took her last breath was just a matter of weeks. And in that span of time, I saw firsthand and up close in such a visceral way how quickly families can lose everything with one diagnosis in this country. I knew it. I'm passionate about access to healthcare, but to be in a hospital as my mother was dying, walking the halls to just, catch some air, take myself out of that space for a few moments, and to hear families getting calls from bill collectors while their loved ones were fighting for their lives was an unacceptable reality in the United States of America for me. So in that moment, and then again, along with the election of Donald Trump, I just could not stand to be represented, in my case, by a person who had voted against the Affordable Care Act every single chance that he got without, and this is really important to me, without coming to the table on solutions to drive down the cost of healthcare or increase access to healthcare. I believe that healthcare is a fundamental right. I think it's a necessity to deal with some of the big problems that we have. COVID-19, I think actually a number of the racial issues that we are facing right now are all tied to two really profound health inequities across our community. Certainly much more is happening there as well, structural racism being part of it. But when we have unhealthy community, when we have people who cannot access healthcare in the richest country in the world, we've made a lot of mistakes. So I decided to run for the United States House of Representatives.
What does that mean, though?
Nothing.
Decide to run? Because all of us watch CNN and get outraged by what happened or whatever you watch. What does it mean to put it in play, like
do that.
actual reality. Yeah.
Yeah, so the first thing that I started doing was meeting with everyone that represented me. So I didn't think that running for Congress was maybe the wisest step right out the gate. First time doing anything in this arena.
Because that's for, I'm a musician. That's like
Yeah.
being like, I'm going to record a #1 single.
Yeah, yeah.
Or maybe like top 50.
Yeah, right.
You know?
So, well, first of all, it was a point of my both rage, grief, and concern, right? So really thinking about healthcare. Our governor has certainly considered a number of initiatives about that. Our state legislature can as a body, right? But to really think about where it was breaking down for me, it was in particular centered around my congressman. So I started meeting with everyone from my city council person to my state senator. And in my case, where I live, from kind of the bottom to the state senate, many of the people who represent me are fighting for many of the issues I care about. So then the next breakdown for me is at our, we can talk about kind of our statewide offices, which I, have lots of thoughts on. But from there, it was that next step to the United States House of Representatives. And frankly, I didn't feel like it was a year to let my representative go unchallenged without a serious conversation about what he was bringing to the table.
So you lost.
I did.
That sucks. I'm sorry.
Hey, that's okay. I learned a lot and I loved it.
But was it a failure?
And so we raised more than any candidate had raised in that race since.
But I mean, like internally, was it like
it was worth every minute, and
really?
I can talk about why.
Yeah.
And we also moved the district 6 points, so we moved it from deep red to a more competitive race, and now there's another candidate out there fighting to keep pushing that forward.
Because I think a lot of people don't do things because they're scared of just outright failing.
Sure.
And you did not win, but you are in politics now. You're doing it.
Yeah, and what I'll say too is for me it was really important to be out at the doors knocking, and I want to also describe the 2nd congressional district. It goes from Farmington, it comes into downtown Salt Lake City. This is actually this might be out of the district by about 2 blocks. It goes over to Tooele. It takes all the way down to St. George. It's got Grand Staircase. It has Zion, Bryce, all the way up to Scipio. Right?
Really?
And then the 4th district cuts out South Salt Lake, most of Salt Lake County, right? So in my case, I had the opportunity and what I would describe as just the immense privilege of standing on doorsteps in, Farmington, up into Davis County. I knocked on doors in Tooele. I knocked on doors in Millard County. I was all the way down in St. George talking to voters there, all the way out to Bigwater, which is the town that's on the edge of Lake Powell. Arizona is like right there too. And to be to have the privilege and honor of going door to door in many communities across this state was profoundly humbling, deeply informing, and made me even more passionate about a desire to serve the state.
It's crazy to because we just sit in our as armchair patriots, not really knowing who these people are.
Yeah.
And to go and talk to them and see what they go through.
Yeah.
So as far as being a politician though, I told you, I want to know. I would love to do stuff like this. A lot of people would love to do it, but they don't do it.
Yeah.
How can we get people? Because I feel like you're also young.
Yeah.
There's not enough young people really getting into politics. Maybe they're going out to the protests right now, and that's awesome. But change, it's America. We have a constitution. Change comes from being politics, unfortunately.
Yeah, or fortunately, right? I think we have a lot of really inspiring leaders across the state.
I'd say unfortunately.
Well, true.
Yes. Anyone can say different. I'm just saying that, anyways, keep going.
Yeah, no, we're in a dark moment. I'm not going to disagree with you there. I think we are seeing things at the, of course, national, state, and local level that are challenging, disappointing, infuriating, all of these kinds of descriptors. And we also have people who I think are deeply committed to change across the state. So you can find these pockets where people are really stepping up to try to lead on issues, whether it's access to mental health care, criminal justice reform, many of the issues that are in this moment. But here's what I'll say. I think, so I'm 39. I feel young, but I feel in kind of the middle part of my professional career, it was a big risk. I don't come from wealth. I have, I work full time. My husband's a teacher.
So you're a congresswoman and
No,
you
no,
work.
no. I'm a county
Okay.
councilwoman.
Okay. Okay.
And I work full time.
Okay.
I ran for Congress.
County
I lost.
councilwoman.
Yeah,
Okay.
county
It
councilwoman.
says on your, I don't know.
Congressional candidate, and
Okay.
then
And
lost that, and then
county
ran
coun-
for county government. Am on the county council.
Okay.
Yes. So, and I will say this too, just like to wrap your brains around like what's going on here. I represent more people in county government than I would have represented in the second congressional district. So there are about 750,000 people in the second district. In Salt Lake County, we have a third of the state, so 1.2 million people I have the honor of serving and representing on the county council. So it's a place where I think a lot of people overlook. They're always mad about what's happening in Washington, but right here, you can contact and you can be in touch with me. You can DM me on I do a lot of trying to educate and share what I'm doing day to day, issues that are happening in our community. I share almost at a pace that I hope is enjoyable to people on my Instagram, in particular, my Instagram stories. I'm daily posting information. When I go to council, I'm trying to just screenshot and share everything that we're doing, leading people up to that.
Which is something that I don't see enough from. I mean, like
Yeah.
that would be awesome to see from.
Yeah, you got to come follow me on Insta.
Yeah, I will.
So it's just my name, Shireen Gorbani, Ghorbani. And in that, you'll see that I'm really trying to, I take seriously my job to try to help people get insight into how to interact with your local government, which at the end of the day has a bigger impact in your life often than what's happening on a national level. I will say this, the other thing too it's interesting is I got a lot of attention and was able to do some really, I felt like very proud of our fundraising efforts in the congressional race. For you to invest, if you're a person who wants to see change, thinking about that $10 or $25 donation that you're making to somebody who's running for your city council, your city mayor, your county government, that goes a lot further in those races. And so you really can do a lot to help support candidates who are championing issues that you care about by investing in them or getting involved with their campaigns at the local level.
So do you go?
Oh yeah, that was the question that I had, because like people maybe think like I want to run, but to do anything you kind of need a team. Like how did you put together your team to go for that?
Yeah, so I had this incredible. I just have a dear and incredible friend who is has a strong background in project management, who had done some political work along the way, but was not, I wouldn't say, an entrenched person in sort of political work here in the state. I told her I was going to do this, and she just upended her life too, and moved. I have a
That's like Parks and Rec, though.
yeah, moved
I mean, I
in.
don't know if you've seen. Do you watch Parks and Rec?
Yeah, I'll say I was more of a 30 Rock girl, but I have also a deep commitment and love for.
I mean,
Parks
I'm
and
not
Rec.
like so in. Parks and Rec is fun because it's like a show I can put on and really not pay attention to. But I do know that the plot line is that she needs her friend
Yes.
to like run her campaign,
Yes.
or else she can't.
Yeah. So my dear friend Stephanie Dolmack came and ran this campaign, and we built from very little infrastructure. I mean, like I said, it was nothing I had done before, but there are a few things that really mattered to me, right? So one was being able to, and I do not like that we do not have publicly financed campaigns. We don't. So the reality I lived in was one where I had to be asking people for money and raising money. And I was so proud of the diversity of our donors. We had so many small dollar donors who came in and supported the campaign. People, many people across this state. We had a donation from every state in the nation, which I was also very proud of. And we really worked to try to just create a lot of transparency about where the money was coming from and how we were funding the campaign. So that's one thing. So I had to go out and fundraise and figure out how to fundraise. So that was like one part of it. Another really important part of it that was central to me is I wanted to talk to people. My congressman rarely shows up in the heart of the city where a lot of us, live. I see him very rarely, even to this day. Obviously, things are different in COVID times, but town halls, engagement with voters certainly wasn't something that he was well known for. And it mattered to me to go out and talk to voters. And I had to talk to, because of the demographics of the district, a lot of Republican voters. And I'll say it was interesting to me to stand on doorsteps, have conversations across the state with Republicans who said, I don't really feel like anyone out there is fighting for me, right? And I was like, are you kidding me? You're talking to a Utah Democrat. Like, you can hold on to that thought. I'm not really interested. But I am interested in hearing it. And what I think it shows, what it exposes, is that most people really don't consider themselves partisans. I'm a Democrat. That's part of running for office. You kind of have to choose, right, a
Do you
side.
have to choose?
Not at the municipal level. So if you
Yeah.
want to run for a city council seat, if you want to run for a city
But
city
why do you feel
mayor.
like you have to choose though?
So we don't have a strong enough system of outside candidates, independent candidates, third party, other options as the system exists now to run for something like Congress as an independent.
Okay. So you kind of need the genre
Yeah.
to like get a base of potential voters.
And there's some infrastructure there. There are volunteers, there are donors that are, that tend to gravitate towards one party or the other. But what I believe and what I have seen across this state is that a lot of people don't consider themselves partisan at all.
Yes.
And I actually think that the labels are just too small for some of both the issues that we're facing and how we feel.
So do you think Utah's not a red state?
No, I don't think Utah's a red state, and I'll tell you why. We passed Medicaid expansion, we passed medical marijuana, we passed anti-gerrymandering, right?
Yeah.
The voters of this state are quite moderate.
Well, also they like know. I mean, as far as medical marijuana goes,
Yeah.
like that's an industry.
Yes.
Like we just
Industry.
like that's money that you can tax, and I think people know that. They think that.
Yeah.
I don't think you have to be red or blue to like try to get businesses. I don't know.
No, and when you ask Utah voters, right, what do they care about? The issues that they care about over and over again, we see things like education coming to the top. Education is not a red or a blue issue. It's not a Democrat or Republican issue, right? Like the core things that people care about are often outside, above and beyond partisanship. Okay. So, another example, we talk a lot about things that are considered, I think, much more divisive. So when we think about the conversations that we have or don't have around guns in our community, the vast majority of Utahns support background checks. That's, again, above and beyond partisanship. It's people believe that we should have good systems that make sure that we don't put guns in the hands of people who are going to be dangerous in our communities. So when you actually look at the polling, when you look at what Utahns think day to day, Utahns' landscape for political action extends far beyond red state politics.
What do you? I've noticed a lot of my friends signing up to be Republicans.
Yeah.
Do you? What is this?
So it depends. So I don't know, when will people hear this?
Well, it's live right now.
Live right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so-
and it will be up, for
So
the foreseeable future.
In the next 30 minutes, you could register, you can register to vote and vote in this primary, or you could register as a Republican to vote as a Republican in this primary. After this, so into the general, it won't matter anymore because you'll get the same ballot, you'll be able to vote.
Yeah.
Many people in the state believe that because of the long-standing single-party dominance in this state, for them to have their voices heard, it makes sense for people to register as Republicans. And the reason that matters is the Republicans do not have an open primary, as Democrats do. So you do not have to register as a Democrat to vote in our primaries. You can request a ballot. There are different ways that you can do it. You have to register. You have to affiliate with the Republican Party to get that ballot. In normal times, so non-COVID times, you could you could register, same day register and vote. You can change your party affiliation same day. Because of COVID, we don't have the same kind of voting infrastructure that we've had in the past. So you had to decide and change your party affiliation by 5 o'clock on Friday, June 19th to receive the Republican ballot.
Oh yeah, I keep getting lots of texts about it. Every day I've gotten a text about trying to get me to sign up as a Republican, and I'm independent.
Yeah.
And I just wasn't sure if that was something to do or.
So my understanding is that since May, over 40,000 Utahns have registered to vote, and we have a number of people who've registered as Republicans, right?
Interesting.
So actually, I think that number have registered as Republicans. So in our state, again, we have a lot of people who are unaffiliated. The unaffiliated voter can like if you wanted to vote, let's say you were a Bernie Sanders person, you in Super Tuesday, you don't have to affiliate as a Democrat. You can just request that ballot.
Yes.
That is not the case if you're a Trump person. You had to affiliate as a Republican to get that ballot. So
I see.
they're
Why would
structural.
they make it harder? I feel like that's weird.
So this is a good question. Why would they make it harder?
I mean, I guess I answered my own question without anyone answering it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't know if I can do that, like morally, but
Yeah,
I just thought that was a really weird thing. All right, so let's go back to, or let's like take this back to who you are.
Oh, okay.
Because I went to Saudi Arabia a few years ago.
Okay.
And I don't know, I just kind of fell in love with the Middle Eastern culture. And I used to work at a rock club called the Middle East.
Oh, interesting.
That served, it was like Lebanese guys, owners
Are Persians like Middle Eastern? Do you guys? I know that there's lots of Persians and Iranians in the health sciences. Actually,
Yes, yeah.
a huge community, and I've learned that like there's different regional
Yes.
affiliations and labels that I let other people define for
Yeah,
me.
so not all Iranians are Persians.
Yes.
My family identified as Persian. Generally, I say I'm Iranian American. Yeah.
But your dad is
My
Iranian.
dad, yeah.
And your mom is.
I always say she's a white lady from the North Dakota Montana border. So my mom was an educator, was a teacher across the West, and really the Wild West of Wyoming and Montana wasn't quite wild enough for her. So in 1978, she decided to apply and moved to Tehran to teach in an English school in Iran. And that, if you've seen the movie Argo or know anything about history,
I can't do it.
I
It's Ben Affleck, and I'm
It's a good
from
movie.
Boston.
It's a good movie.
I know, but it's so boring too.
So if you know anything about the
I'll watch it.
Iranian hostage crisis, that was at the period of time when my mom had just moved there.
Oh, wow.
So she met my father, they fell in love, and then she was evacuated out of the country ahead of the with the fall of the Shah, ahead of the hostage crisis that many people are more familiar with. So they were able to, through letters and working through the embassy, anyway, eventually they were reconnected, came back to the United States, and got married in the front room of the farmhouse that she grew up in on the North Dakota-Montana border, truly out on the prairie. And, my dad was he is still a very sweet guy. He was a laborer. He worked in a brick factory in a little ways out of the town I grew up in, which was Bismarck, North Dakota. But he was also an addict. So he struggled with alcoholism and drug use. And by the time I was 6, he left. So it was just my mom and I most of my time growing up. And we actually haven't spoken in a number of years.
But what about, how does that bring you to Salt Lake City and to being,
Sure.
you know what I mean? Like, because obviously having a diverse background like that, especially like, after 9/11, that's got to kind of put you at some kind of political disposition.
It did.
So I guess, yeah, speak to that a little bit. I'm curious.
Yeah, so I was in college in Minnesota. So graduated from high school in North Dakota, went to college in Minnesota, where actually I had the privilege of being represented by Paul Wellstone, who was a senator from Minnesota, who is fundamental in sort of how I think about politics. My engagement in politics was one of the few senators who voted against the Iraq War. I have to think about the timing of all of that. He has had a few sayings that I carry with me when I think about decisions that I'm making. In particular, we all do better when we all do better. Really thinking about what it means to really lift up communities, strengthen communities, was just a furious fighter for farmers and workers. Was a big labor guy. Big inspiration to me. Died when in a plane crash when I was in college. But all of that to say, so kind of backing up to my own identity, and in particular being connected to my own family's story, was something that was always challenging for me because of the disruptive nature of the relationship I had with my dad. My grandmother came to the United States once, and I remember so vividly we did not share language, but we certainly shared, so many moments. I remember her, praying. My father wasn't practicing Muslim, but she would pray. And I just remember the first time I saw her doing it and filling her hands because I thought she was asking for things.
Oh,
like
yeah,
I remember her praying, and I was like, "What does she want?" And as a little girl, like putting jewels and like feathers and like whatever I could find, craft items in her hands, and I just remember her so lovingly, putting those aside and finishing her prayers. And I caught on eventually. But there were just these like small moments where I had this connection to my own family story, right, and who I was, and all of that came into a really different focus when, Iran was part of the axis of evil. So I'm a sophomore in college, I believe, when 9/11 happens, and then all of the fallout of, a terrible war and a just rise in Islamofascism, like really like terrible feelings about Muslim communities.
Did you feel
and that
that?
kind of violence.
Like, we're both in different ways mixed. You're mixed, but I am able to like, I look white, completely white.
Yeah.
I don't know. Did you feel? Is there any kind of like I don't know. Do you know? How to,
vulnerable as a just looking, you know what I mean, like
but still being able to
pass.
So
I had that same privilege,
Yeah.
right, where most of the time I could just pass them, and most of the time people would say Gorbani, right, you
Yeah.
should open a pizza store.
Yeah.
But in that moment I felt very called to talk about my own history and my own story, and to really think about like what it would mean to engage in ongoing war in these corners of the world that I think many people wanted to vilify in particular ways, right? And for me too, it was like I just remember I'm married to a white guy, and like I just remember flying after that, right? And I would always get pulled out, and my plane tickets, I just remember, would have like truly just like row after row of these like black X's on it. I'd be like, does yours have this on it?
Yeah.
Just mine.
Oh.
And then like a constant, always being bomb tested at airports, like all of that kind of stuff started for me then and continued. I actually did the TSA pre-check because I was like, I'm sick of being bomb tested every
With that
time
like
I go
clear
anywhere.
thing?
I didn't do clear. I did the TSA, but
Does that continue? Because I know that we still have like I said, lots of Iranian students at the U in my program, and now there's lots of travel restrictions, and
Yes.
if you have any connection to Iran, then you're in this extra level. Are you still in that sort of classification?
So I'm not, or not that I'm aware of, but I think about this a lot too, right? Because that experience that I had with my grandmother,
Yeah.
where she was able to get on a plane and come around the world to meet me once,
Yes.
that's not happening right now.
No.
So families that are torn apart by this administration, that are blocked from these just moments that I get kind of emotional actually thinking about the few moments, the one moment that I have, that one experience that I had with her is not accessible because of a policy that does not make us safer.
Yes.
Is not rooted in, a particular policy agenda. It's the chaos of this administration, and it's creating chaos and heartbreak for families.
And it's really preventing a lot of research. I think that's something, and when you talk about people vilifying Iran, and I think that people would be really surprised that Tehran is very similar to Salt Lake.
Yeah.
As that's what
we're
I'm hearing.
reading La Peste right now, or The Plague.
Oh, that's right.
Which is based in Iran.
And
Yeah.
he calls it Oran, which is, I felt very, the education in the state is not great as far as world geography and history, but I thought that was interesting.
Well, I just think it's a lot of times with the racism that we have towards the Middle East and the Islamic religion, I don't know, we just think that it's like the Taliban, they just like live in the desert. So when you read this book, that like it's just a city.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, I was over in Saudi Arabia, and there's more Dunkin' Donuts in Riyadh than there is in Salt Lake City, which is a problem for me. I'm from Boston. Like, I need some Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know. It's interesting.
It's interesting, and I think it did. I mean, for me in particular, a lot of my early political awakening was around peace and anti-war work, right? And then actually decided to serve this country in the United States Peace Corps. So after college, I spent 2 years in the Republic of Moldova.
So you're a lifer
Moldova.
then. You've been going for this,
Yeah.
putting yourselves in position to
Well,
to
I
do
would say
this.
it's just a commitment to public service.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. I think our generation has been raised with a little bit of cynicism towards the government.
Yes.
And so now that we're growing up and getting jobs, I was looking at a job with the Utah State or the government threat department. And, I hadn't thought about getting a government job as a service, as doing a service. And I think as I like how you said political awakening. So I think more people are having this, but we don't have that know-how of
I think there's a lot in the way of getting in the commitment, like to have that commitment. I mean, I know a lot of people who've been on, did the Peace Corps, and I don't see them becoming politicians right now. I don't know. It's hard. There's a lot of things that it seems like doing the small things doesn't get a lot. So maybe that's why.
That saying though, that like those who love peace have to like organize and agitate as much as those who like propagate war, right? So I think about that a lot. There aren't a lot of people who serve in the Peace Corps that go into politics. There are some. I think we would be better served if we, spent more time thinking about ways that people who were doing that kind of service work, whether it's in their communities. And I will say that's like another thing that I hope people take away from, I want people to think about when they're thinking about how do I make that step, right? So not everyone has to run for office. Not everyone has to be in office, but you would be stunned how few people actually take the time to reach out to your, like, I sometimes get a lot of emails, but most of the time I don't get any. And you can do so much to build a relationship with your local elected representatives, and to do it outside of a particular issue, right? To just say, I'm a constituent. Do you have any office hours, or, can we meet for a cup of coffee, or, I guess in this case, like a walk or a Zoom, whatever, can we find a way to connect? Because those relationships are so crucial, and I think of the just immense privilege I've had to be able to work on some issues where community members, people in the deaf and hard of hearing community, want to see more captioning and open captioning in our films. This is an issue that is not only for our hard of hearing or deaf community, but also for English language learners to be able to go to the movies and have captions on our movies. So we've been working on this for a while, but it's kind of this slow conversation with the movie theaters around town, pulling them in, having these conversations. That came to me because a constituent just reached out and made it a priority, right? You can do that. You can do that just by taking the time to build those relationships. And it does so much for thinking about, if you're thinking about running one day, if you would like to see a friend or somebody else to help them along the way, understanding how it works and getting a sense of volunteering on a campaign or any of those activities really can help move you into that space.
Yeah, I like that it was your friend that really pushed you out the door. Like, no, we're doing this. And I think as people start asking themselves, like, what can I do? And I think it's going to be find your tribe, because we actually volunteered on a council. Somebody was running for city council here in District 4. His name is Mike Iverson. And we went to high school, and I just remember him being in the government clubs doing it. He was a lifer, really, and now he's getting to that point. And we went to Pride and talked to people for him, and just seeing all of the paperwork and things. He didn't end up making it on the ballot because of a technicality, and I think a lot of the people who do those things or volunteer in the Peace Corps, it's easy to get burnt out and discouraged. How do you keep from getting discouraged? Like, because it's really daunting.
I just have undying. So I'm relentless, and I just have undying faith that we can change this system. The system is changing.
Yes.
It's changing right now. And we have to just keep pushing, organizing, staying on it, doing. And for me, I think a big part of what I am learning, right, is that to get the work done also means staying at the table.
Yes.
Building trust, understanding that as much as I want to sometimes just fly off the handle, it's not helpful. It doesn't move us forward. It doesn't build trust, right? So I do sometimes get people saying, well, why aren't you, screaming from the rafters? And I'm like, you wouldn't believe how many tweets I delete where I'm just like, it's not helpful. And I do want to be helpful, and I want to move it forward, and I do want to build trust. That requires kind of the slow and steady work of just staying focused, staying patient, and staying with it. I also know that for people who consider themselves, progressive, people who are looking to see some really radical change, especially in some of our big systems where we see massive failure, whether it's in healthcare The investments that we have, you mentioned briefly before we were discussing the way that we lock people up in this country, whether it's mass incarceration or ways that we're investing in alternatives to incarceration at the local level, like all of these kinds of things. This is slow and grinding work, and it takes a team. So to have one person out there doing it, or even two people, is never enough. We have to see it moving, and I think that's what's so powerful about this moment. I think there are people who've been working on criminal justice reform, on changes to policing in particular, to be thinking about all aspects of what's happening in our criminal justice system, who've been working, just feeling like they're pushing against public opinion, pushing against investment in infrastructure, pushing, and we're having a break right now. There is a break where the public is saying, in ways they've never said before, we have to have fundamental changes.
What's it going to take, though, to like actually make that stuff happen?
Yeah. So,
and what is that stuff that is actually possible?
Yeah. So it really depends on So it's probably important to kind of like take one piece of it, right? So let's take all of the things that we call police to do that they probably shouldn't be doing. Okay. So we don't have a huge infrastructure, but we do have some infrastructure in this county for mental health crisis response. We have teams that can be called. They can be called through Intermountain. We have a couple of other partnerships. Some counties have invested in this. Davis County is moving in this direction, where we have mental health crisis response teams. So, and I think we have one that's targeted, or there's an effort right now, and I do believe this
I guess that's like defunding is what that is, but it's also just kind of like moving the money to a different place. Is it actually defunding?
Defunding the police, like when people say that, in places where they're doing it, what they have done is reinvested in community responses that are meeting the moment.
But is it taking money away from the police? Because I feel like
that's some cases.
Yeah.
So, and in other cases, no. So an example of an effort that's working here now, I mentioned we have a lot of efforts around addiction treatment services at the county. A hole that we have, a place where we're lacking across this entire state and across this entire country, is a mental health, like for people who are truly in crisis, the capacity to respond. We just don't have enough, right? Yeah. So last year, the state legislature funded a crisis receiving center. What this does is creates an entire change in direction. So if people are coming into, people will still call the police, but what the police will do then is bring this person to a mental health crisis center, where they will then move into a different track and out of our jails, out of our criminal justice. That is not where that's not where people in crisis, mental crisis, need to be, right? So this is an opportunity where we're talking about, using police, and in other cities, and I'm forgetting some of the examples. I don't want to misspeak on this, but I'm nearly certain that Seattle's one of the cities that has reinvested in having unarmed officers that can go out and respond when people are in mental health crisis.
But in Utah, do you think that enough people will be like, I don't know, guns in Utah are that's just a synonymous thing.
Okay, but so and I will say more broadly, one of the big challenges that we have here to thinking about policing differently than we have in other countries is how many guns there are. It is so unsafe for people. And one of the things, we just, an officer was killed in Ogden responding to domestic violence. That is one of the most dangerous things that we can send police officers to do. It would also be deadly for an unarmed, it's deadly for anyone who's going to be intervening because of how many guns we have in our communities, right? Yeah. So thinking through all of this is going to take time, and it also is going to take infrastructure and resources. So Minneapolis, of course, is on everybody's mind, and the city council has come out to say that they really are going to dismantle their police department. That city council has spent years creating other opportunities for interventions around community health and public safety that are coming at the issue from a community health framework. There is some of that really good work happening right here in this county. That might be things like pulling down or pulling out officers from schools and putting in counselors or mental health professionals into our schools. We already devastating deficit there. But the other thing that we're facing in this state, and again, more broadly in the nation, is the gap that we have between the amount of social workers, mental health care providers, licensed, social workers, the gap that we have to really fill in where we could offload crisis intervention from the police and put it into a different model is one that's going to require, I think, really visionary thinking from leaders in this state to create pipelines for people to retrain or come into this work, and it needs to happen everywhere. So not just in the heart of our cities,
Social
but we
workers.
also know social workers, people who are, advanced mediators, people who have it could be some, community health workers. Like there are all kinds of different places where we could be filling in where we don't want to see police as the first response. But we also have asked police to do work that no one else wants to do in our communities. And frankly, for many years, we have not paid them well to do it.
Yes.
So we're in a real difficult situation that is going to take time to get out of. And in our county, we do have some pieces of that infrastructure in place to do a community health response when it really is a community health issue.
Yeah.
Like homelessness is another really interesting example. So there are cities that have moved to, some of the calls that we get. And actually, I would recommend that anybody who's interested in what is actually happening in terms of our jail, you can go on the Salt Lake County website. If you search Salt Lake County jail dashboard, you can get a snapshot of every day who's in our jail and just some basic demographics to understand what's going on there.
I know about that because that's how I keep in track of my friend Ted. Yeah. He's just, it's like, oh, Ted's in jail today.
You won't get identifying information, just so everybody's clear.
I'm
you
just
won't
messing.
know. But you do get the opportunity to kind of get a snapshot of what's happening, right?
Yeah.
That is a result of what kind of calls are happening in our community. We also know people are concerned about individuals who are experiencing homelessness and often call the police on them, okay? That is a situation where in other cities, and we have some of this work happening here, that we have responders that go out that are community responders that are trying to help connect people to resources. Those kinds of things are often in public safety budgets. They're often in these kind of big, when we look at these big numbers, they're often embedded in there. And I am really committed to, and I need to spend time to get this right, but I'm really committed to creating greater transparency so you understand where we have these really good things going in our county government. There's a long way to go, but some of the infrastructure is in place.
So you have to leave soon.
Okay.
I'm not saying that. I know. I just
You have
know
to get
that
out.
you're a county congresswoman.
No, I'm a county councilwoman.
Councilwoman. I know what you are. I'm just misspeaking.
It's okay.
I just want to hit a few things before you have to go. Mostly, is there any are you running again soon?
I am.
How can we support you?
So I'm on the ballot now. I will be now. I don't have a primary, so I shouldn't have said that. I will be on the ballot in November. I'm running for Salt Lake County Council at large. Here's something that anybody can do, and I think this is really important. It's a tough time, I know, for a lot of people financially. It's hard for people to make donations. If people are in a position where they can do that, of course, that's huge and helps campaigns like this one. But the other thing that you can do, and it's shocking how much it matters, but to go in, follow me. You can find me on Twitter. It's at Shireen Gorbani. Same thing on Facebook if you're still on that. I know a lot of people have left that space. And then Instagram as well. Especially Instagram, I try to do a lot of just minute by minute updates about what's happening. But you can, just by following and sharing, letting people know that I'm here, that your local races matter, making sure that people take the time to go all the way through their ballot this year and educating people on what it means all the way down to your county treasurer, all of those seats matter, and people need to take that time. And you have such a benefit in Utah because you can sit down, you can, pop open that computer, you can make some calls, you can research your candidates.
Why do you say Utah specifically? Just because
because
not
we have statewide mail-in.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So your ballot will come to your home. The other thing that's so important to me, and I hope that people listen to this and take it seriously, please go check your voter registration. You can go to vote.utah.gov. You don't have to affiliate, but people move. And when you move, if for some reason
from one city to another.
From one city to another.
Or just from one, it's really difficult. I actually tried to register a couple of times at our address, and I just got to the driver's license division. They said that that I wasn't registered, and I was like, I've tried so many times.
Yes, yes. And so it's so important to go to vote.utah.gov, check your voter
Yes.
registration, and then register to vote. The time that you take to register to vote means so much in this community, to make sure that all of your friends are registered to vote.
Yes.
Post it on your social media, put it out there to let people know, here's how you do it and here's why it matters. And if you want to see change in our community, if you want to see change in our state, I certainly have deep opinions about where you should maybe cast those votes. But you have the immense privilege and opportunity to take a little time, research your candidates, and vote.
What about financially supporting you though?
Okay, so it's Team Shireen is the website, and you can make donations through that website. We do Act Blue, so it's pretty simple to support the campaign, but that is hugely helpful as well.
Do you get a jersey?
No, but
No?
I feel like people want them.
Yeah, you should
I
make.
made shirts that just say, team, or I think they just say Shireen Salt Lake County Council, because I was doing parades and it wasn't last summer. And I was like, I'm just going to put this on a shirt. And people were like, we want that shirt. It's
Oh,
just
yeah.
like a very basic shirt.
What would be the mascot?
Oh man, what would be the mascot?
I know, you're on the spot.
So, well, I would say the official fabric would be sequins, but the mascot. This is a good question.
I think you just lost me on the jersey.
So
I wasn't.
I had the just incredible fortune of being connected to Bart the bear. He's a bear who's in movies, and
Okay.
I was able to do an ad with him for the congressional. So I think it's a grizzly bear.
I
Oh,
like it.
I feel like I've seen this ad of you with the bear.
Yeah.
I remember being, and just maybe it's it was in Slug. Was it in
Yes,
the Slug
it was
magazine?
just in Slug.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
that was me and Bart.
And I remember seeing the
That's a
campaign
huge
before.
bear.
Yeah, it's a big bear.
Yes, we've been Dave delivers slugs, so I was looking at the photography and I was just really confused because it's so out of context.
Yep.
And I was just like, what is she doing with this bear?
Chilling with Bart.
Yeah, chilling with Barden. Because I definitely saw you on the
I
I'm
just
in
like
District
can't
4.
imagine being next. Like, how close were you
Yeah,
to
how
this bear?
close were
This
you? That's
bear
what I
is
wanna know.
a good like 15 feet tall or something, 12 feet tall maybe.
Yeah, so Bart is a grizzly bear, and
He's a Kodiak, Alaskan Kodiak is what the internet is saying.
and I would also, I'm just so inspired by the work of the family that trained Bart, and they have done a lot to purchase up large swaths of land for grizzly bear habitats and wilderness, which is incredible. They are huge champions for wild spaces and protecting grizzly bears, and have this bear that has been in Game of Thrones and Evan Almighty and
No
other.
way.
Yeah,
I
another-
didn't know it was a famous bear.
It's a famous bear.
I was just impressed at the bear, but it's like the Game of Thrones bear.
Yeah.
How do we meet
Okay.
the bear?
Well,
Don't answer that.
yeah,
Don't
it's-
answer that.
it's a
It's on the
very-
jersey.
It's on the jersey. So anyway, the Bart was probably, I don't know. It's hard to say. Like maybe, well, like 10 feet away.
That's crazy.
Okay, that's
That's very
because I'm
close to
looking
be
at
to
a
a bear.
picture of Bart the bear, like directly next to a guy with a mullet, and I don't know which is more ridiculous, the mullet or the fact that he's like 2 feet away from him.
Yeah.
I don't know. I wouldn't get that close to a bear.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen Grizzly Man?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, it doesn't end good.
No, it does
It's
not.
it's not the best.
Yeah.
Shireen, thank you for hanging out.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you walked in. We met very like I don't know. I felt like I creeped you out or
Well, you
weirded
had sent
out.
me a message, but I had forgotten about
It's
it.
okay. Facebook is like that
I know.
sometimes. But yeah, thanks for coming down to Sweet J. This is the Spo Show. This is I used to do a lot more political things, podcasts. So thanks for being a part of like a renewed edition of the show.
I would love to come back.
Yeah, it would be good to have you back. Pepper, thanks for
Oh,
sitting
yeah.
in.
No, thank you guys. It's great to meet you and to hear your perspective on what it's like to be in there. I think a lot of people want to be involved and as far as donating, I know a lot of people right now they're feeling guilty, they're feeling weird, and donating is a great way to get in there.
Yes.
And especially to local political races.
Yes.
Salt Lake City County Councilwoman.
Salt Lake County.
Salt Lake County. Oh, I understand now.
You slipped city in there. So Salt Lake County.
Well, see, that's
Council.
just because I'm like I don't understand this
no.
area that well.
No, it's
But
okay.
I all right. So Salt Lake, like the actual county.
Yep, Salt Lake County
Councilwoman,
Council. Yep.
Shireen Gorbani.
Yep.
TeamShireen.com.
Yep.
Go there, support. Thanks for watching, everybody.